In last session, we have seen about importance of non-functional testing and why different types of non-functional testing as well. So we have done the introduction part of non-functional testing. What are the different type of non-functional testing? Performance testing, security testing, compatibility testing, upgrade and installation testing, recovery testing. Today we will focus on performance testing. So in performance testing, mainly there are three types: load testing, stress testing, and volume testing. So as the name suggests, load testing. What exactly is load testing? Load testing is mainly done on web applications only. Because in desktop application, as they are individually installed in our local system, we don't have to perform that much of load testing on those applications, because there would not be a major load on such applications which are desktop applications. But the web application, so web application follows client and server architecture. So what is client and server architecture? So on such web applications, application will be installed on server machine. End user will access that application via network. So he will use the browser, and via browser they will send request to the server machine, and server will send response to that user. So such applications which are hosted on server machine and end user can access on client is nothing but browser. It can be a browser on mobile or it can be a browser on computer, and from there that user can access that application, and internet is required for that. Now for such application, load testing becomes important, because let's take a scenario where user 1 is interacting with server machine. At the same time, if the user increases, so user 1 is performing actions with server, then there can be another users also doing the same actions with server at the same time as well. So our application should be made in such a way that if the load is increased, then also application performance should not decrease. So in load testing, what we will do is we will gradually increase the load and measure the response time. So we will start with 1 user, 2 user, 3 user, 4 user, 5 user, 10 user, 20 user, 50 user, 100 users. In such a gradual way, we will increase the load. And for every request after increasing the load, we will also measure how it is impacting the response time. So whenever user will send request to the server, response will be received to that user from the server, and that response timing we would be measuring. So when the load is gradually increasing, if the response is decreasing in very observable manner, then we should inform the developers to improve the performance of the application. Because if the load increases and if the application becomes slow, then users will not like it. Slow application, no one likes it. And how we will benchmark that? So basically, initially customer requirements can also suggest approximate load that can be expected to come on application. So let's say whenever client gives the requirement, let's take an example of banking application. So whenever client gives the requirement of such banking application, he would also recommend what could be the expected load that would come on that application when it is on production. So while development itself, we should consider that load, and we should make application robust for such load. And for load testing, to test that, what we can do, we should consider them. So we should consider that much amount of load and make application in such manner that it should not impact the response time when that much load comes to the application. So let's say for application, expected user load is 10,000 users. So when we are doing the load testing, we should test for such 10,000 users load. But just imagine, practically in test environment, it is not feasible to have 10,000 actual users to test that application. So when we are in testing phase, to correctly evaluate, we should produce 10,000 users load. But in real time, practically having 10,000 users performing on that application or testing the application, it might not be possible. We don't have the actual users in that time. So in such situation, we can take help of some tools. So there are some tools which are especially used for load testing. For example, load runner, JMeter, etc. So these tools can create 10,000 requests on application, making it as same scenario as 10,000 users are actually using that application. So by using such tools, we can gradually increase the load. We can create the request for one user, then we can iterate that request, and we can also increase to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10,000, right? So such tools provides that facility to increase the load gradually without need of actual test users. We can do all this stuff from one machine only. If you use that tool from the one machine, you can create the scenario where actual 10,000 users are performing that action. So we can create 10,000 requests by using JMeter or load runner to perform the load testing. And main factor is we have to increase the load gradually. So we can increase the load gradually and conduct the load testing to find the benchmark point. So we will keep increasing the load gradually. We will keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 100, 1000, 10,000, up to 10,000. And while doing that, there would be some point where the application performance will start degrading. It might reduce or it might crash the application. So if that benchmark point is not up to the client expectation, let's say client has said 10,000 users are expected load. So ideally that benchmark should not come below 10,000 users. And if it is coming below 10,000 users, that means we should ask the developer to improve the application performance because it should not crash for 10,000 users. The benchmark point should be higher because expected load is 10,000 users. So that we have to verify during the load testing. So benchmark should not come below to the expected benchmark point. So in such situation, we have to immediately report to the developer and ask them to increase the performance of the application. So that is we have to cover during the load testing. So let's see one more time. So load testing, important point is we have to gradually increase the load. Now comes to the point of stress testing. So we have seen about the load testing. Now stress testing. Both the terms might sound similar, but there is a small difference between load testing and stress testing. The main difference is in load testing, we gradually increase the load, whereas in stress testing, we have to test by suddenly increase or decrease the load. So in stress testing, we have to check the application behavior when the user load is suddenly increased or suddenly decreased. And we have to check the speed of application and the braking scenario. So when it is helpful, so why stress testing is required? So normally let's take an example of e-commerce application. So let's say there is any e-commerce website. That website has declared one date for the sale and multiple offers. There can be a festival sale which happens on some specific day. So imagine on the normal days where traffic is constant, but in such specific day where some special sale is organized, there can be sudden increase in the traffic for that website on that specific day. So multiple users will try to log in and try to shop on that application on that specific day. So that will suddenly increase the load on that specific day. So for such sudden increase in load, the application should not crash. So that we have to validate during the stress testing. So stress testing, we have to increase the load suddenly. For example, immediately to 10,000 users, 50,000 users, 1 lakh users. So we don't increase the load gradually in the stress testing, we increase it suddenly. We have to check the behavior and understand the application behavior under sudden increased or decreased load. We have seen the example of festival day sale. Users traffic would suddenly increase, and also after that day is over it can suddenly decrease as well. So application should behave smoothly without any performance degradation on such day as well. So that we have to verify via stress testing, and it helps the application to make robust in such scenarios. We can also know if we found the breaking point. For example, let's say sudden increased load by 1 lakh users breaks the application. So we can prevent that. We can actually prevent that. If you know the breaking point, we can actually create some alternative to prevent that scenario. For example, instead of one server, we can add some more servers in such specific days where sudden traffic is expected. So we can also have some additional server machines so that the load will be distributed and application will work smoothly. So how we will know that? By doing the stress testing only. So that's why stress testing is important. So main difference between the load testing and stress testing is, in load testing we just keep increasing the load with gradually or constantly we increase the load. But in stress testing we suddenly increase the load or suddenly decrease the load. So primary objective of load testing is, the main objective of load testing is to evaluate system behavior under expected and normal conditions. While in stress testing, we assess the system robustness under extreme and beyond normal conditions. In load testing, we increase the load gradually to measure the performance threshold. In stress testing, application is subjected to extreme conditions to identify the breaking points. In load testing, we have to check if the system can handle anticipated user load. Whereas in stress testing, we have to identify system vulnerabilities and failure point for sudden stress or sudden increase in load. We can simulate the load testing scenario expecting the usage pattern and traffic. For stress testing, we have to simulate conditions beyond the system's regular capacity. So for stress testing, let's say application is expecting load of 10,000. During the stress testing, we can make it as of 50,000 and check if the application breaks or not. The main goal of load testing to ensure the system functions correctly under the typical loads, and stress testing will be used to uncover the weakness, bottlenecks and point of failure in extreme scenarios. Load testing is expected within expected operational limits, whereas stress testing is pushed to beyond operational limits. So these are the differences between load testing and stress testing. Now the third type is volume testing. Now what is volume testing? So as the volume says, volume means size. Volume testing focus on processing of large size of data and how much maximum data can application handle from users. Volume testing is also known as flood testing. It is a type of performance testing where the system is subjected to a large volume of data to check the capacity and its behavior. The main objective of volume testing is to determine how efficiently the software handles the increasing volumes of data without degradation in the performance, crashing or failing. So volume testing is mainly focused on size of data, large size of data. What is the example of volume testing? So banking application. So let's take a banking application where large number of transactions are happening. So there can be account related transactions, there can be account status related transactions, user information related transactions. So such number of transactions will increase the data size on that application. And how the application handles or processes such large data that we should validate during the volume testing. Another example can be e-commerce application with multiple number of product reviews coming from users in real time. So there can be thousands of products in the e-commerce application and users would put the review for such products. And let's say this data will keep increasing. So we have to ensure that whenever product reviews or any other type of data that is increasing, so we have to ensure that the application remains stable and application performs efficiently even as the data volume grows. So the reviews and other data will keep growing. So our application should perform smoothly in such growing condition as well. It is mainly around the data size. We should identify any bottlenecks or limitations in the system's ability to handle the large volumes of data. Tomorrow 1000 products data will come. After that 10,000 products reviews will come. It will keep increasing. So data will keep increasing for that application. So our application should handle that large amount of data efficiently. That we have to verify during volume testing. After doing the volume testing, it can also provide recommendations for optimizing the system to improve the performance under high data loads. So if the data load is getting increasing and if it is impacting the performance of the application, then we have to ask the developers to increase the load, to increase the performance of that application. So that is about the volume testing. So volume testing mainly focuses on volume means size of the data, how it handles the large transactions or large number of data in our application, that we have to validate for volume testing. So it mainly focuses on processing of large size of data and how much maximum data application can handle from users. Stress testing is basically, we have also seen load testing and stress testing. In load testing, we have to gradually increase the load. Stress testing is basically sudden increase in load and to verify the performance of the application in such conditions. So this is all about the load testing, stress testing and volume testing that comes under performance testing, and all this comes under non-functional testing. So to perform this load testing, stress testing and volume testing, there can be a separate team of performance tester which mainly focuses on non-functional testing part. Thank you for watching this video. In the coming session, we will see about next topic.